Show me the law. I'm going to show you the law. I found it. They've been hunting all over for it, and I found it, and so we're going to get into that. However, this seminar is divided into 3 parts. The first part is the foundation. You will not be able to understand. You'll be looking right at the law and not know you're looking at it if you don't have the foundation. You've got to have this foundation first. So we're going to spend the first 7 hours on the foundation. It'll only take about an hour to discuss the law itself, and then it will take another couple of hours to show the remedy on the law. And the law and the remedy on the law, I think, will be quite apparent if you have a good foundation. So pay attention to that foundation. That is really, really important. It took me many years to focus in on it. Took a lot of bad decisions. You know, we got a lot of experience here. Where did that experience come from? It came from bad decisions. Okay? Experience comes from bad decisions. So we've made our bad decisions along the way. We got the experience. Now we can make good decisions based on that experience. So this is the foundation. What you see here, by the way, is on the website, 1215.org. Okay? This is the Nitty-Gritty Law Library and Sovereign's Paradise putting on the show here. And this foundation, if you get this foundation down pat, you pretty well got it knocked. You can pretty well handle any situation that comes along. However, handling any situation coming along does not mean you have a license to harm other people. This is all premised on you being legally right, lawfully right, and morally right. If you don't have all 3 of those factors down, then you've got a problem. And if you are, it's possible to be legally wrong. You can be morally right and lawfully right, which means common law right, but you could be statutorily wrong. Well, the statutory wrong, that has to yield to the common law. Okay, so if there's a conflict between the common law and the statutory law, the statutory law must yield. Now you see, if you look at the codes say, particularly in California, I think it's the either the Civil Code or the Code of Civil Procedure, I forget which, but I think it's 22.2, which says basically that that the common law shall be the rule of decision unless, or so long as it's not in conflict with the statutory law. And that is true if you're in the statutory house. If you set up your case to operate under statutory law, then that's how it's going to be. But in truth, the common law takes precedence if you start off in the common law house and use it. But we'll get into that. Anyway, the first thing I want to cover is attitude. This is really, really important. If you have a bad attitude, if you have an attitude where you're always angry, you're always upset, well, obviously, court procedures won't be fun. And let me tell you something. Court procedure can be lots of fun, especially if you're in charge. And but you have to have a good attitude. If you have an angry attitude, this will work against you for a number of reasons. For one thing, people start off simply not giving you the credibility. For some reason, anger reduces the credibility, the perception of credibility on the part of other people. So you basically have to be a very calm, very friendly kind of person, regardless of the issues that are going. So you, plus, if you are a person who is emotionally locked up and you're into anger, or if you're in any strong emotional position, be it happy or angry, you will be blinded to your opportunities. You will not see the opportunities that are there because of how your mindset will color your ability to perceive. So your mindset very much controls your ability to perceive. So the proper mindset, if you really want to do law well, is you've got to neutralize yourself and be open to everything. Don't be automatically rejecting things just because they conflict with whatever you're seeing or thinking or whatever. And by the way, this rule that I'm giving you applies to attorneys too. And the beautiful part is every attorney that I've ever had to deal with had a mindset that I was absolutely ignorant because I'd never been to law school and didn't know anything. And they took liberties, and they weren't sensitive to the stuff I put into the papers, and then wham, they get it in the end, you know. And the very common thing that I hear when I go to court is the attorney says to the judge, he says, "Your Honor, I don't understand this paperwork." Well, the judge understands because he went through corrective schooling, commonly known as judges' seminars. You know, they have programs where they teach judges what the real law is because somebody's got to keep the system straight. And they do. In fact, I've noticed a remarkable consistency in the codes. And I know the attorneys aren't that smart. And I wondered for a long time, how is it that they passed all these laws and had it right? Well, you look at the legislative procedure, and what they do is they pass it through to the legislative committee. And so one time I went up to the Capitol in Sacramento, and I thought, boy, this is an opportunity. And I went to the legislative committee's offices, and I happened to get a hold of a supervisor. And so I was all primed to ask the supervisor about the process they went through and how they reviewed it and so forth, you know. It took about 30 seconds for me to realize this person didn't have the first clue of what the real system was. So I had to change my program. And what I did was I asked the person, I said, well, could you explain the procedure, just exactly what happens when a proposed statute comes to your office? What is the next step? And she says, oh, well, what we do is we have a meeting with the judges from the Supreme Court, and they critique it for us as well. And we work it out in a committee, in a meeting. So there you are. Here I thought that the fountain of knowledge would be in these legislative committees. Turned out they didn't have a clue. The real fountain of knowledge is with these high-level judges. They know. I've never had a problem with a high-level judge. I may have had problems, but they're all legitimate problems. They understand, they're well-educated, they're intelligent. These guys know. And if you get your act right, you'll get the results. So, again, its attitude is very important. When they perceive you as basically a good guy, that's what counts. There was a very important lesson came to me out of that, and that is, make sure you're likable. I'm friendly to the judge. I'm friendly to the attorneys. You know, I have to admit, one of my moments of glory was when I had an attorney screaming at me so loud that you could hear the echoes off the end of the hall that was 300 feet away. But that was a rare opportunity. That doesn't happen every day. But even that guy liked me as a person. You know, he was just angry because he wasn't getting what he thought he should get out of the courts. But it's very important to have the right attitude. Get the clerks to like you. People don't have an axe to grind against you when you first walk in. But if you show an attitude that's bad, you can generate dislike, you can generate lack of cooperation. And I can tell you that some of the best research we've ever had done was done by the clerks themselves to help us. It's just amazing because they really like this. They perceive us as good people. I go in, I talk to the clerks all the time, and I do talk to them, you know, on a personal basis. And it's, hi, how are you? How's the family kind of thing? And you tell them a joke or something. So, and it's a good way because then they start cooperating with you. You don't look so much like a kook. remember, you're doing some very, very strange things. At least they look strange to these people, even though we have hundreds of years of tradition behind us. It looks strange to them because they're simply not taught. The attorneys are simply not taught this stuff. They have no clue. And coming from you, well, you have no authority as far as they're concerned. You know, what do you know? But you know a lot if you follow these procedures. So I'm just emphasizing attitude is a big, big factor, much bigger than we really anticipate. And we get a lot of behind-the-scenes help from people that we could never prove we were helped. But I've seen judges do 180-degree turnarounds mysteriously. Just there were tigers on the bench, and suddenly they became like kittens. They were very nice and cooperative and so forth. Part of that was because of the fact that we fenced them in with the real law. But a big part of it also was the fact that they liked us. In one case, I remember this judge just absolutely raking the attorney over the coals. It was spontaneous. You know, we weren't expecting it. We didn't even have any motion that was even close to it. But this judge went into a tirade against the attorney and told the attorney, you know, that the attorney was the one that was responsible for the delays in this case, and the attorney wasn't doing her homework, and the attorney wasn't doing her research. And I mean, he just went on for about 5 minutes on this attorney. And this was an attorney who had 5 years of experience in the court system. But when we went into that courtroom, we always said, "Hi, Your Honor," and "Nice to see you," and so forth, you know. And then we got down to business, of course. But on a personal level, it was just fine. And I know that these people will stab you in the back first chance you get. They get, you know. But when they like you, it takes a big chunk of energy out of their sails there. Yeah, wind out of their sails. So this is attitude is not law directly, but boy, it sure can have some surprisingly good effects if you have a good attitude. Okay, well, enough of attitude. Now we have language and dictionaries. Now, language and dictionaries, basically in America, we all speak 3 languages. The low-level language is called slang. Okay, that's the language of the street. It changes from moment to moment, from block to block. Okay, so and slang has some very interesting features in it. You know, so the formal English is our second language, and in order for strangers to communicate, we have to be educated in formal English or business English, if you want to call it that. And so that's an important language too. But it is a separate language. Even though it's also called English, it's a language that's separate from the slang version. And then there's the language of the court, sometimes called the King's English or legal English. And that's a very, very stable language. That, you know, a word means the same thing today that it meant 300 years ago. And precedence is very important. And the legal dictionary is far larger than Webster's unabridged dictionary. The legal dictionary, if you go to the law library, the legal dictionary is not called a dictionary. It's actually called words and phrases. Okay? Or you'll see that it's the restatement of the law. That's another name for it. Or American jurisprudence. These are all dictionaries, as far as we're concerned, dictionaries of the English language. And if I remember the word "to," spelled T-O. I remember it took several pages of court cases where battles were fought over the meaning of the word "to." It really surprised me when I first saw that. So be sure when you are using the language, be sure that you're speaking the right language and you know that language. When you one exercise that you could do that I did is just sit down with the Constitution and one of these dictionaries, and every single word, just pretend you never saw the language before, and every single word, no matter how simple it is, you know, what it starts off, we, W-E, look it up. You'd be surprised what that word means when you're talking legal language. And so if you did that, that would give you a tremendous force, you know, intellectual force behind you to make you more effective in writing your papers. It also makes